Welcome to What the World Needs Now with hosts Tom Whisinnand and Josh Monroe. We hope you're able to leave feeling encouraged and ready for another day of changing lives in the field of education as we speak with inspirational teachers from across the nation and the world about what keeps their spark lit. Today we're blessed to be speaking with Lyn Porter, an amazing teacher from Williston, Vermont. She teaches kindergarten through second grade PE. Without any further ado, here's Lyn.
Lyn, we are so happy and blessed to be here with you. I know that we've been talking off air for a little bit, but if you got in an elevator with somebody, what's your 30-second pitch to them? Who are you? Where are you from? What do you do? How do you let people know about yourself?
I would say number one is that I am an educator. I teach pre-K to second grade physical education, although I have taught as far as pre-K to 8, but right now I'm with the younger grades. I think beyond that, I am a lifelong learner, and I really am probably the class clown of the school. I believe in humor in what I do, and I believe that really brings a big part to social emotional learning. And I think that's pretty much what I'd tell somebody.
And you're an amazing teacher. You are an amazing, amazing teacher. Like, you've won awards. You've won the Sanford Teacher Award for the state of Vermont. Congratulations on that. And I want to know, what made you want to pursue a career in education?
Well, it's kind of a funny story, actually. I come from a very long list of educators in my family. And my maternal grandmother was an educator. My mother was an educator, a couple of educators on my father's side. And my mother tried to talk me out of education.
Really?
She did. She said, I love the kids and the kids are the best part of education, but the other stuff behind the scenes is really frustrating. And I don't think you have the patience for it.
Oh, no. Well, I'm glad she didn't talk you out of it. My gosh.
Yeah,
and
no kidding.
So I had a few teachers in my educational career, ironically enough, not physical education teachers, that were really pretty influential in my learning. They believed in me as a person and not as much as a student. They kind of got to know me and understood where I was coming from. And then in physical education, I had a couple teachers that really kind of felt like they were just kind of going through the motions. And I've always loved kids, and I've always loved sports, and I've always loved being active. And I said, you know what? Somebody's got to be able to be doing this better in physical education. There needs to be a physical education teacher that can make a difference, because the teachers that I had that made a difference were not in the world where I really lived and breathed at that moment in time. And I was kind of grasping for those straws. So when I thought about going into education and knowing my love of children and my love of learning and wanting to project that, I really felt like there was an opportunity for me to do something in physical education and make a difference and reach students in a different way outside of the classroom.
That's awesome.
Wow.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's a great story. It's always interesting to listen to teachers, because the thing that leads them down that path is those teachers that cared about you as a person and not just as a student. So that's awesome to hear. And man, it sounds like you had a lot of great people in your life. You've had a great career. It's been rewarding, but has there ever been times when you've kind of fallen into a dip, when things have gotten hard and maybe you've lost your inspiration a little bit?
Yeah, I've been doing this for a long time. So this is 29 years in the school district that I'm currently in. It's 33 years in public education.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. About 10 years ago, I hit a wall, and I felt like things were changing and not changing in the direction I wanted to see them change. Students were becoming less respectful. There was a need for immediacy, immediate gratification. Everything you did, everything had to be perfect. Like, if I can't throw this ball and hit that target 3 out of 3 times, I'm going to just shut down because I'm not perfect at doing it. even though I've never done it before. And then bigger than that though, for me, the picture was the home support. And I felt like as the respect level was going down and the students were changing through whatever course of action was going on in the world, I discovered through, trying to reach out to some families and trying to help students bring them into the fold that might have been struggling, that the interactions from home were less than positive. And I really got very discouraged. And I thought, you know what? I know where this is coming from for this student, and how can I help them if I can't get support from the place that they're in most of their world, their home. So it took me a while to kind of look at how the world was changing and what I was seeing. And I discovered that a lot of it we became more of a hesitant society, in the effect that, like, for my favorite for years was teaching kindergarten, the excitement level, the wow factor. And, you teach the children a tag game and they thought it was the best thing in the world. I now have to teach how to play tag without it being scary, because kids are not going out in communities and playing in large groups anymore. It's structured play dates. It's one-on-one, and it's easy to share in that environment, but it's a lot harder to work things out in larger groups when you don't have that exposure. And I think that's ultimately where the change started to come from. And I definitely was feeling some push from that and wondering if what I was doing really was making a difference, or if I was just banging my head against the wall every day trying to get past the obstacles and the roadblocks that were there.
That's incredible to see that change, and then not just to see it, but then really start analyzing it and to start being that reflective practitioner that we all hope teachers are, right? Not just seeing a problem and complaining about it, but then taking the action to really, like you said, teach those specific skills that were needed, instead of just, like you said, beating your head against the wall. Man, that's incredible. And you continue to teach those skills. In some of the newspaper articles and some of the website things that I saw on you, Lyn, they talk a lot about your involvement with social emotional learning and how important that is in your classroom.
Yeah, so that to me that's become key. I just, I've gone from being simply a skills analyst, which I am very good at. That's probably my strength in physical education, to being a skills analyst with a much stronger social emotional bend.
Yeah.
So I kind of had to step back and reflect, as you said, and think about, what is it that I'm here for? What's the reason? What's my purpose again? And had to reflect on, okay, so am I becoming that teacher that was going through the motions that I had? And I didn't want to be that person.
Yeah.
So I started thinking about ways to re-engage. What was my love? What was the reason? And very much so, as I said, probably the class clown of the school. Humor for me is a huge social emotional platform. So recognizing that I wasn't laughing every day with my students and missing that, and having to reflect on why I was missing it, and then being able to step back and say, okay, so I've lost this. This is why I'm here. This is my love. How do I get this back?
Well, how did you get it back? I think that's something that Josh and I are both really interested in, is how do teachers stay inspired? How do you, Lyn, stay inspired every day, laughing with your kids, getting back to that point? Are there books or activities or creative outlets that you find that really are instrumental in helping you stay positive and an inspirational teacher?
Part of that came from me being a lifelong learner. So I started looking for things to see if people were putting up posts in public forums or things like that, even though 10 years ago, social media was certainly not what it is now. I kind of came into, when I was in my undergrad years, I was a technophobe, full all out technophobe. But you got to realize that I graduated in my undergrad in 1987. So technology was a really small factor. And then in 2008, I got my master's with a focus on educational technology. So the world certainly shifted. But I started looking in platforms where I was seeing, am I seeing the same things I'm feeling? Is it just me? Have I changed? Am I doing something wrong? And I started noticing a pattern that there was a shift. People were talking about the same things. So people started brainstorming. It was like, this is what's working. This isn't what's working. And I thought, okay, I need a way to reach these kids. And it needs to be beyond physical education. It needs to be beyond classroom education. It needs to be on a personal level. So I started finding some titles that I thought were really relevant to physical education and would start reading books like Sally Sore Loser or Winners Never Quit, the Mia Hamm story, or Howard B. Wigglebottom Learns to Be a Good Sport. And my kids, they love that stuff, pass it to the left, pass it to the right. They learned the song. They thought it was great. But then I also was very, very interested in how different cultures deal with respect. And the Native Americans have a very tight-knit culture. And I started reading about what it meant for them to survive. And a big part of what it meant was a community. Like everybody had to work together to make things happen. If they were going to survive, they were going to hunt together. If they, the things that brought their community together is what made them a strong community. So I read a story to the children about the Native American culture and the importance of beads in their culture and how beads tell a story. And so I went out and bought a bunch of lace rawhide and a whole bunch of beads. And each class had a lace of rawhide. And when I saw a student doing something that was kind, that was caring, that was empathetic, that was building the group, I would give them a bead. And at the end of the class, that bead got strung on their class rawhide, and they could see their kindness story grow. And we talked about how that story became our story and how important it was. And then we would reflect at times. Wow, look at how many beads you have. You've done an awesome job. How does it feel when we're working this strongly together? How does it feel when you're picking other people up? How does it feel when you're supporting other people? And they started to make the connection. And that became just a really, really big project. In fact, it grew beyond my classroom. It became the point where classroom teachers were saying to me, what are these kids talking about getting beads in physical education? And I told them the story, and they said, can we have a piece of rawhide for our class? I said, absolutely, most definitely. I said, but if you don't want to deal with the rawhide, you can have the kids come to PE next time with their beads, and we'll hang them on our rawhide here in the gym. And we had literally had laces of rawhide. Sorry.
You have a cat.
I have 3.
3 cats.
3, yes. I am the crazy cat lady, almost. Not quite.
4's the limit for that. That's all right.
So yeah, it kind of grew on its own, and the kids got really excited to see, and they would look at other groups' beads, and they'd say, oh, who's got that lace over there? Theirs has got a real lot of beads on it. How come theirs has more than ours? And they would start intrinsically picking up those ideas of, oh, wow, okay, they've done this. We didn't do that. We can do this. And that made just a huge difference.
Man, that is an awesome story. I got to be honest, I've never heard of a physical education teacher taking that much into their class. We talk in our district a lot about 3D teaching. So taking all these different elements of teaching and intertwining them, and you're doing it. That is unbelievably inspiring and amazing. So hats off to you.
Well, thank you.
Awesome.
But I also have to tell you, a little bit on the class clown side. My kids know that I joke around and I can be silly and have humor, and they know that I can make fun of myself, because, if you can't laugh at yourself, they don't see you as really a human being, you know? So
Yeah.
I'll do something and I'll trip over my words or whatever. And, you know, you're probably, Josh, I don't know, you might be too young. Tom, I think you're probably on the edge. You could get this, but my little kids don't get this at all, but they think it's really funny. I'll trip over my words and I'll say, okay, let's rewind and try that again.
I know what VHSs are. I watched Three Ninjas and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on VHS.
And the kids start giggling, and I'll repeat what I was trying to say and get it out the correct way. But I have a really funny story about, you know, humor with kids. I had a group of 3rd and 4th graders at the time, which I'm no longer currently working with, but we were trying to finish an orienteering unit, and the weather outside had been dicey at best. And it was kind of a misty gray day. And I said to the kids, I said, all right, we're going to get this done. We're going to go outside. We're going to get this done. We've been working this hard to get this. I know you want to do it. Let's do it. There was a guidance counselor sitting in my class and observing a student. Totally forgot they were there, totally engaged with my students. And one of the kids said, well, Miss Porter, what happens if it starts raining really hard? And I said, well, then we'll come in. And another student said, well, what happens if it starts thundering and lightning? I said, well, then obviously we'll come in. And another student said, but Miss Porter, what if we want to stay out? Totally forgetting the guidance counselor was in there. I looked at the student who knew my humor and said, then I get to pick who stays outside. The guidance counselor looked at me like I had 4 heads. Then the kids started cracking up and she got it. She knew they knew my humor, but I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just said that in front of this guidance counselor. And I was like, gee, I wonder if I could get fired for this.
Good thing you didn't.
Right?
And it's fun when you can have those moments with students when, like you were saying earlier, when they know you as a person and you know them because you've built those relationships, you can joke around and say stuff like that, and all is good. There's still that love that fills the room.
And you know, you can really break stressful situations with humor as well. There'll be times that I don't think my kids are engaged in listening at all for whatever reason. You know, it could be the day after Halloween, oh God forbid, or you know, it could be that they've just been in 2 hours of standardized tests, and you know, they're losing it. And you know, I'll be trying to get some message across, and I know that they're not there, so I'll look at them and go, excuse me, are you speaking a different language? Do I need to try something different? Maybe some German. Sprechen Sie Deutsch? And then I've got them back because they're laughing and they're re-engaged.
And what a great way to do it with, like you were saying, with humor instead of discipline. An awesome way to keep them engaged. So you're talking a lot about all these unbelievably inspirational things that you do in your class. But educators are facing a lot right now, and so we're curious. In your opinion, what do you think the most pressing issue educators are facing?
Yeah, I think that really the most important thing is recognizing that we need to build people. We don't need to build just students. This next generation of people are the people that are going to be taking care of us when we can't. And we need to see that these children can be kind, have empathy, want to be lifelong learners, because the world is changing so quickly. The number of jobs that one adult has changed drastically, where people don't stay in a career for a lifetime. So they have to have the skills to be lifelong learners, so as their world changes, that they can adapt to it. I don't think that education is suiting children well if they're just doing the basic, you know, reading, writing, and arithmetic. We need them to understand the importance of why they're learning this, so that if they have a question or they get excited or engaged about something, that they can challenge themselves and learn more about it. And I think that's really vital. But I think probably more important than that, the most important issue right now facing educators is time.
I think you're spot on, Lyn. I think you are absolutely spot on. Tell us more about how you think time is a big issue.
More and more things get added to our plate, and very little gets taken off. And I think because of the amount of things that get added to our plate that are meeting the standards and, you know, following through on these protocols and making sure that the student's doing X, Y, Z, creativity is becoming lost in education. Having to teach to the exam so that our kids will pass. Okay. So I think the more we have to teach kids to pass the test, because as a nation, we hear constantly that our kids are not achieving, you know, and we're not comparing apples to apples. Our student ratio is very different than other cultures. We live in an inclusive world, which is great because the kids become much more empathetic and understanding. But if you compare that to other cultures where students with challenges are not in those classrooms, it's going to make a huge difference in the outcomes of testing. So we're not comparing apples to apples. We're comparing apples to oranges. But yet we're being told that what we're doing is not effective enough. So more is being added. So as more is added, creativity is diminishing. So we're not any longer having the opportunity and time to reach the kids through creativity, but we're having to teach to what those outcomes are that are expected. Mm-hmm. And I know for me, as a learner, I was a horribly shy child, believe it or not. And I was the kid that would avert eye contact. I sat back and did everything I was supposed to do, but learning was not easy. But if you gave me a way to engage myself, and I really believed and understood that it was something that was exciting, I'd do the work on my own. Mm-hmm. I'd want to know more. And I think that's where we're missing the boat, because we don't have the time for creativity as much anymore, because as more and more things are added on, nothing is ever removed from the plate. It just keeps getting piled up. And we're expected to do more and more, but we lose the flexibility of who we truly are and what we believe as engaging students in a really high quality, meaningful, creative way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So what do you think about what Lyn said about creativity getting pushed to the side and everything else, assessments and doing work, but not engaging in work for our kids?
Yeah, I think that is a big thing that educators face, and one of the reasons that we see such a high burnout rate for teachers, because as all of this is added on, we feel that weight, and sometimes it's hard to deal with it, and that's why I think we're seeing a lot of teachers start leaving the field of education. Great teachers, mm-hmm. And man, I hope we get back to that point where the focus isn't a test. And the focus is student growth and making sure kids love being at school. That's gotta be our top priority, I think. Student growth and making sure that school's a place that kids love.
You know, I kind of hope it's like bell bottoms. I said, Josh, I'm not sure that you're old enough to remember bell bottoms. And, you know, bell bottoms were never a great fashion, but they're back again. So I'm kind of hoping that the pendulum will swing back to the center balance in education, kind of like bell bottoms came back.
Yeah, bell bottoms, I'm not old enough for that.
Well, Lyn, if we were to break it all down, you've been in education a long time, and you've been amazing at inspiring kids, inspiring others, teachers, inspiring your community. What does, in your opinion, what does the world need now?
I think I alluded to this a little bit earlier. I think it needs kindness and empathy. I really think that we need to have people that are understanding, that people are caring, people that are empathetic, people that can recognize that immediately happening is not always best, that there's value in applying yourself to work towards something and earn something and celebrating that outcome. And I think we really need to have well-rounded people. The more I see happening in education, and the more I hear happening in education with people like Betsy DeVos, that the push is not there for the well-rounded student. That, we're losing out on some of the arts. We're losing out on physical education. We're losing out on some of the other really vital areas of study for the basic ABC curriculum. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of students that the reason that they stay in school is for these other purposes. And let me ask you both this question as I answer this question for you. When you think about how you did to get through COVID, what were some of the things that kept you going?
Oh, I mean, I'm gonna look beyond family, because I think that's where I'd start is my son, my daughter, my wife. Here's the hardest part of answering that question is, my big thing is I play basketball, and that's like how I stay healthy. And COVID took that away from me. And so that was really hard for me. I was playing 4 times a week. Now I'm at once every other week. So it's coming back, but it's short. So what I had to do is I had to turn to running, unfortunately. But that's really where I had to go. Tom?
I read some books, Lyn. I got a hold of Mark Brackett's book, Permission to Feel. I got a hold of Allison. I think it's Allison Kolzer. Dare to Inspire, I think, is another book. And then when the gyms were closing down, I went and got an old Chuck Norris gym, a total gym. And so I have a basement room downstairs that I converted right? But that's how I got through, and then it was going upstairs and remote learning with the students that were in my class. And it really felt mundane and repetitive, to be honest with you. So,
mm-hmm. So having both of you saying that and hearing both of you saying that, both of you just spoke to the reason for well-rounded people. You were saying right. That you exercised, that you read books, that you engaged yourself in other ways. Yeah. I know for me, I filled my bucket through COVID, getting involved in some professional leadership. This is very exciting for me to have this opportunity. Professional learning, the amount of professional learning that happened during COVID, I am like the wizard of Screencastify at this point. But also really started writing a lot and did a lot of listening to music and painting and things that I didn't think were important in my world as much, because my world was really steady. I loved what I did. I loved who I was. I loved who I was with. And then the rug was pulled out from underneath me. So I think what we really do need is students that are wanting to be learners, that we've given them that opportunity, but are caring and kind and empathetic and have all of the resources and outlets that we can give them to have a broad spectrum as a human being, so that when they are our future leaders, that they can take care of themselves in ways that will keep them mentally, emotionally, physically well, while they're trying to deal with all of the stressors that come at them in life, because we prepared them as people and not just students.
Yeah, 100% agree, Lyn. That's absolutely great.
Yeah, that's a perfect answer.
Yeah. Lyn, if people want to get a hold of you or follow you on social media, is there a Twitter handle or email that you want to give out for people to have, or?
Sure. I am my Twitter handle is Lyn Porter. But I'll give you my school email, and I would be glad to have anybody reach out. Any questions, more than willing to answer. It is Porter, so LPORTER at cvsdvt.org. So basically, after you spell it out, it's Champlain Valley School District, Vermont.org. So it's just the first letter of each of those words. It's very difficult over a call because they're very similar words. You know, I could do like Charlie, Victor, Sam. I also have a school Facebook page, which I would be glad to have people join, and that is Allen Brooks School PE Fun. If they search for it, they can find it. It is a closed page, but if people request access, I will give it to them. I've been very tight on monitoring that simply because I do have faces of students and things like that, so I don't want it to be an open page.
Sure.
I do also have an Instagram account. My Instagram is ILVCMP. And, you know, I'm always, my office is always open. My phone is always available, and I'm more than willing to speak with people, answer questions. I love to share my love of education and what I do with my students. And I hope that what I can do, having been in education as long as I am, is perhaps maybe, just maybe impart a little bit into somebody that may be struggling a little bit, but really knows that this is their course, and help them maybe calm the winds and direct their path a little bit easier.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. You got a lot of social media. Should we throw a TikTok in there for you?
You know, I haven't tried TikTok, but I should get on. My soon to be 11-year-old niece seems to think I'm missing that.
That's awesome. Well, Lyn, this was a lot of fun. I think the best part of doing all of this for me is you've got me pumped to go to school tomorrow and be a better teacher. I absolutely loved hearing your stories and hearing how you're taking all these different contents and wrapping them into PE and making kids just all around good people. So thank you for inspiring me and for being here with us tonight.
My pleasure. It's been an absolute thrill to be here.
Thanks.